Welcome everyone to the 169th Celebrity Synastry chart reading, where we will be looking into Teri Hatcher and Dean Cain. If you don't know me, hi, I'm Adeline and it is so nice to meet you. On this channel, I look at the dynamic between two celebrities using astrology. For those new and returning, I take notes on a Synastry chart looking at the personal planets, signs, aspects, and of birth times available house overlays. I share these notes and add my extra insights and interpretations along the way. So if that sounds good to you, subscribe and click the bell to join us twice a week, and let's get right into this one. Starting off the sun, we have Teri's sun in Sagittarius and Dean's sun in Leo. These are both fire signs. It's a joyful relationship and it's a mutually beneficial relationship. From what I saw, the TV show they were on, Lois and Clark, that was back in the day. I wonder if this was like maybe the sort of start of their careers, and they obviously with that mutual beneficial, this both skyrocketed both their careers. Teri hurts Dean's pride and Dean is loyal to Teri. Teri brings out Dean's fun side and Teri motivates and inspires Dean. Dean's sun overlaid in Teri's 12th house. They are different people and it's an atmosphere of mystery. Marriage is not possible and they don't understand each other. They have no idea why they are together, which if they did meet on the TV show, I wonder like if maybe they were considering why the other was cast for the part or why they were put together, because obviously that sort of in-person chemistry needs to be considered as well. Dean finds Teri unpredictable and Dean sees Teri as exotic and strange. Dean feels Teri doesn't approve of him and the relationship requires a lot of patience. Dean is attracted to Teri against his judgment. That's interesting to consider. Teri's sun square Dean's Uranus. It's not predictable or stable. I wonder if this would be related to like if they had since had a friendship after the show. Obviously it wouldn't be quite as predictable or stable compared to when they were on the show constantly around each other. Separation occurs and causes strain. So yeah, I wonder if this is just one of those situations where like unless you're constantly, put together with the person, outside of that, it is a bit hard for them to sort of like get together, if that makes sense. Dean feels trapped by Teri over time and the relationship can start and end suddenly. I wonder maybe because obviously starting suddenly, they both have to suddenly have this sort of like chemistry because they were like a couple on the show. I wonder, obviously that's how the relationship had to start suddenly. But also potentially maybe the show was cancelled unexpectedly. They cannot rely on each other in the long term and Teri grows tired of Dean's inconsistency. Dean changes and challenges Teri's life and Teri initially finds Dean attractive and appealing. So there definitely was an initial attraction mutually. Teri's sun square Dean's Pluto. It's love-hate and there's a strong magnetic connection. It's transformative, which seems to be the case for Teri. We just saw that Dean changes and challenges her life. They both trigger the other's deepest issues and there are power struggles. I wonder if that's related to Teri hurting Dean's pride. Maybe they're both, naturally domineering figures, but Dean just has his pride hurt a bit more. They both need to learn not to focus on their ego, and it's hard to remain just friends after. I'm getting the idea, I know it's early, but I'm getting the idea they completely separated, you could say, post the show. It doesn't seem like, they could remain friends after the show. They both want to be dominant and they want to learn everything about the other. There's a possibility to encourage the other's negative qualities and there's a possibility of an unhealthy obsession with the other. They both experience emotions they never felt before in a relationship. Dean's sun opposite Teri's moon. There's a stronger and mutual attraction and their differences attract them. They are both drawn to the relationship and Dean may find Teri too dependent. Teri may find Dean overbearing. I feel like this will be in terms of like if like both of them want to be dominant, but Dean has this side where his pride may get hurt a bit more. Potential, I don't know if he's a bit more of like a macho guy maybe.
Now for the intermission. This video is brought to you by me, my Etsy store, Adeline the Astrologer. If you ever watch this and think, hey, I would like her to read my Synastry chart, well, I will. I do personalized Synastry readings on my Etsy store, both basic and detailed. The basic one is very simple to understand. It's not overwhelming at all. It's pretty good for those that are beginners to astrology, just getting the head around astrology, or just as a fun gift idea. The detailed one is just like what I do on my channel, just a lot of insight and interpretation on your chart. So if you are interested in that and everything else astrology and tarot related, readings and gifts, then definitely check out my Etsy store. Links are below. I'm always releasing new things, so definitely check it out if you're interested. You can even just favorite the store just to show your support for free. Thanks for listening, and let's get back to the reading.
So now it's time for the moon. We have both their moons in Aquarius. They both value their independence and individuality. So I wonder, that would be an interesting thing. If they're both naturally dominant people and they both want to assert them, own independence and individuality, that would be an interesting dynamic when they're supposed to be sort of like, I guess Dean would have been like the lead if he was Superman on the show. So, but still, that very interesting dynamic when you both want to be the lead and assert your individuality. They both have the tendency to be rebellious and they both value being socially involved. They are good friends and neither prioritize domestic life. So it would have been a good thing, especially like if it was back in the day when they were a bit younger. I'm sure that would have been, I guess, in that way would have been a good thing for the TV show and everything if they're both prioritizing it and that's the main priority. They are both out of touch with feelings and emotions. They clash if they have different views. Again, I don't feel like they would clash as hard as they could. The relationship lacks warmth. I kind of see that though. Like from what we have seen so far, like there is this sort of like calling. They seem to be initially attracted to each other, but like there's not a lot of glue, I guess you could say. There seems to be a thing with once they separate, they're separated. Dean's moon overlaid in Teri's 6th house. Dean has conflicting feelings towards Teri, which we did see this whole thing of like Dean feeling like Teri doesn't approve of him, seeing Teri as a bit like, unpredictable and everything. So I wonder if it's in that way. Both are too helpful to each other and can be beneficial working towards a mutual goal, which goes right back to the beginning where we saw this is mutually beneficial. It's easy to create a resentful relationship. Yeah, I see that. Like they seem to be quite strong personalities together. Teri's moon is square Dean's Neptune. They misunderstand each other's signals and it's a confusing relationship. There's a possibility of neglecting each other, yet not surprisingly so. Teri is unsure of Dean's intentions. I don't blame her. Like from what we're seeing from Teri here, like he's initially attracted to Teri but also has a bit of conflicting feelings towards her. And he's leaning towards like being a bit more of a macho, more egotistical, like dominant compared to Teri, who thus far, we haven't seen a lot of ego from her as such. So, I don't blame her. There's difficulty maintaining relationship. I think that's the best way to put it. Like, because we've just been seeing there's separation occurs. It's hard to keep the relationship going. It's hard to remain just friends after, which I know sometimes that could mean, in a romantic couple, like they cannot just go back to being friends, exes sort of thing. I feel like in this case though, it just seems like once they're not together, it is just one of those relationships where they kind of need to be in the same vicinity for them to actually connect. Otherwise, outside of that, it's just not going to happen. Teri is sensitive to Dean's moods. That's not great. So now it's time for Mercury. We have Teri's Mercury in Capricorn and Dean's Mercury in Leo. Teri encourages Dean to focus on the physical aspects of life, and Dean resents Teri for her criticism. I'm not obsessed with how this is going for Dean, his character. Teri sees Dean as impractical and Dean sees Teri as someone with no vision. They help each other with their strengths. Dean's Mercury overlaid in Teri's 12th house. Dean has a sixth sense with Teri. I wonder if maybe that's why he feels a bit conflicted towards Teri. Teri may feel violated and Dean may feel overwhelmed around Teri. It can easily become a paranoid relationship and the intuition is strong. Teri's Mercury square Dean's Saturn. There's a deep respect for the other's intelligence, which we have been seeing, we just saw they help each other with their strengths, but we've also been seeing the differences attract them. So I feel like this could potentially be something where, they have, different acting styles or something like that, and they exchange, their different ideas in that way and have that intellectual rapport with each other. Teri feels inferior to Dean, which again, I feel goes back to this sort of it seems like Dean has this macho, egotistical persona. Teri can be intimidated by Dean's practicality and their serious tone in conversation. Negativity and criticism take over conversation, and they both question their role in their relationship, which I feel goes back to how we saw in the beginning, where they both question why they are here or they have no idea why they are together. So I wonder if there is a bit of, iffiness around that, especially with the whole thing with both wanting to be dominant. which is interesting. Potentially, like, if they're like Lois and Clark, I'm pretty sure they played actual Lois and Clark. I wonder if there was like conflict of like who's the actual leader. Like, potentially with these two being dominant people, it's that sort of attitude of, well, we're co-leads, but one of us has to be the main lead, technically. So now it's time for Venus. We have Teri's Venus in Scorpio and Dean's Venus in Cancer. These are both water signs. They are drawn to each other and they feel at home together. They are committed to each other. I think we've been seeing they're committed to each other, especially like when working on goals together. Dean's warm nature regenerates Teri. I'm glad we're seeing something positive from this. There is magnetic attraction. See, this we have seen. Teri may unintentionally hurt Dean. I guess, like, in terms of, we did see how he feels a bit conflicted around her, particularly with, like, he feels she doesn't approve of him. So I wonder if maybe her sort of more dominant personality, I don't know, maybe she comes off as a bit more aloof and everything, or just someone that wouldn't, you know, approve of him. He sort of gets that interpretation and vibe of her, when actually she's just a nice person. She just comes off as being a bit more aloof and everything. Dean's Venus overlaid in Teri's 11th house. Dean is deeply moved by Teri, and Teri doesn't understand Dean. I wonder if, because we did see there's like attraction on Dean's end and these conflicting feelings. I wonder if maybe, there could have been a sort of overlay between his actual role and Dean himself as an actor, but there could also, he genuinely had, I don't know, some feelings for Teri, which made him feel conflicted because, you know, they're on set, they're at work. Dean is needy and vulnerable around Teri. We're seeing this, like, it's like this total switch now. We're seeing it could be both, you know, maybe that is why Teri is confused by Dean, because sometimes he is very sort of warm and everything, but sometimes he's very colder. Dean acts different in this relationship, and Teri feels Dean is too good to be true. Teri feels insecure in this relationship. I don't blame her though, like, because we're now seeing this sort of different side of Dean, but even before that, like, Dean just seems to be a bit more like this macho persona, but it's kind of, is it worse or better when sometimes Dean could be also very warm and everything, because that would be like very hot and cold for Teri. Dean tries to hold on to this relationship. Interesting. I wonder, because we saw Dean seeing Teri as someone with no vision, and we did also see that this relationship ends suddenly. And now we're seeing that he tries to hold on to this. I wonder if maybe Dean was trying to hold on to like the film and everything. Not as such this relationship. I guess it would be onto this relationship in a way. I wonder if maybe, I don't know, he was a bit more committed to this than Teri, and Teri didn't necessarily like fight for the TV show and everything like Dean did. Which is maybe why he sees her as having no vision. Potentially he had a lot of ideas and then suddenly they were cut. Their Venus signs are trine to each other, so they enjoy each other's company and they share a mutual community, not surprisingly so. They appreciate how the other handles money, dresses and socializes, and they both have a desire to make each other happy. Teri's Venus trine Dean's Mars. Dean enjoys spending time with Teri, and Teri makes Dean feel confident and desirable. I would not be surprised, like, from what I'm getting out of this, it seems like Dean definitely had a bit of like a crush on Teri. You know, that's why he feels a bit conflicted. It's sort of like the dynamic or the trope where like you have a work crush and there's sort of like your like eye candy to go to work. You want to, you know, you kind of try a bit better for them because, oh, they're like my work husband, they're my work wife. That's what I'm feeling like from Dean, because like we're seeing this sort of, you know, attraction to Teri, but also these conflicting feelings as well. It's like he doesn't want to, you know, cross business and pleasure, so to speak, but also he kind of is stepping into it, I don't know, to like motivate him to go to work and step into character and everything. That's another thing as well. Are those lines being blurred between like Lois and Teri? There are strong romantic feelings and it is fulfilling. The feeling of love never fades away. Teri's Venus trine Dean's Jupiter. Dean appreciates Teri as a friend. I think that's what he wants. Like, there is confliction within him. They share inside jokes and they see the good in each other. They're a popular couple. I mean, I'm sure they were at the time, especially like when it came to like sort of shipping the couple. I know it was before like time before of like, you know, your Tumblrs and your Wattpads where you could write those sort of fan fictions and all of those fan groups. but I'm sure there was something. They make each other feel confident, which we did see Teri making Dean feel confident. They're a financially abundant couple and they thrive in each other's company. Teri improves Dean's social life. Okay. Teri's Venus sextile Dean's Uranus. Dean likes to keep the relationship exciting and they share unusual interests. They're an unconventional couple. I mean, I guess unconventional way, like a lot of people aren't in a role where they're kind of shipped because of their certain personas. Teri is drawn to Dean's unique qualities and Dean feels appreciated by Teri. Dean finds Teri charming and attractive, not surprisingly so. I wonder as well, like, because obviously Dean liking to keep the relationship exciting, I wonder if he did like come up with particularly like unique plot points for the show and everything that the show could have gone on with, but I don't know. For whatever reason, they didn't. Teri's Venus conjunct Dean's Neptune. Teri is sensitive to Dean's needs. Like, she seems to be a bit more sensitive to his, like, moods and everything. I think we saw that, or his words. There's a strong romantic bond, and Teri sees Dean as a soulmate. So there is some reciprocation for her. Teri does reciprocate those feelings for Dean. Dean may ghost Teri. Okay. I guess it would kind of make sense. Like, if Dean is bitter towards Teri because maybe she didn't fight for the film like Dean did, you know, maybe he got bitter and just wanted to cut all ties. There's a dreamy energy when they meet, and Teri finds Dean very attractive. Teri may project her ideals onto Dean. I mean, I guess she would have to do some projecting. So would this be in a sort of more personal sense, or would this be a bit more in like a lower sense? Dean initially encourages Teri to have an idealized image of him, and over time Dean feels pressured to keep up with Teri's image of him. Again, is this sort of like Dean and Teri or like Lois and Superman? That is very interesting though. Like, I guess a very weird sort of like role to live up to, you know, like Superman. Or you could say like, I don't know, potentially, or like, I mean, it is Lois and Clark, so I never watched the show, but I don't, is it more about Lois and Clark? Like, I assume Superman would play some kind of role in it. Very interesting though, like to live up to this sort of like mythical creature in a way. Teri needs to learn to look past Dean's faults, and Teri appreciates Dean's imagination. So we're seeing like Teri appreciates his like uniqueness, imagination. Potentially she just wanted to move on to other roles, or like didn't see, I guess was not as passionate as Dean as he was about his own visions. It's not a practical relationship, and it's a spiritual and magical meeting. Teri's Venus sextile Dean's Pluto. They are consumed by each other, and it's unlikely to grow stale and routine, which not really surprising. Like, it's acting, they're going to be different things all the time. Teri sees Dean as irresistible, so they both seem to be pretty attracted to each other. Like, whether something happened, it's emotionally fulfilling, and both see disagreements as a way to understand the other more. There is a certain like appreciation of the differences we've been seeing, so it makes sense. Dean's Venus sextile Teri's Mars. It's an energizing relationship for Dean, and Teri feels confident around Dean. It's love at first sight. Oh gosh. It's kind of funny though. And again, is it like Lois and Clark or Dean and Teri? Like, there does seem to be something. Like, I'm not sure if they ever confirmed anything as such, but it is a bit, you know, suspicious. Like, I don't blame people if they picked up on the vibe. And again, it's hard to say, like, am I picking up on like Lois and Clark or Dean and Teri? Like, you know, because technically these two were the characters in that movie and everything. But you know, that is there, and love at first sight is quite mystical and magical and everything. Teri helps Dean out of his comfort zone. Dean's Venus sextile Teri's Uranus. This is a repeated aspect, just inverted, so everything from before is further emphasized, but also Teri likes to keep the relationship exciting, and Dean is drawn to Teri's unique qualities. Teri feels appreciated by Dean, and Teri finds Dean charming and attractive. So it seems like if Teri also likes to keep the relationship exciting, potentially she also like tried to do things as well to keep up with the show and everything, potentially had her own ideas. Dean's Venus sextile Teri's Pluto. This is another repeated aspect, just inverted. So again, everything from before is further emphasized, but also Dean sees Teri as irresistible. That's what we've been seeing throughout the reading, haven't we? So now it's time for Mars. We have Teri's Mars in Virgo and Dean's Mars in Cancer. Dean avoids confrontation with Teri. I don't like that because we did see that he ghosts Teri. So that's not great for Dean. Gosh. Dean is protective of Teri and Teri gets frustrated with Dean, yeah. I don't blame all of these things of like Teri getting frustrated, not really understanding Dean and everything. Teri has difficulty understanding Dean, yeah, not surprisingly so. And Dean gets hurt by Teri's critical tendencies. I think we did see like right in the beginning that Teri's a bit more critical. Dean's Mars overlaid in Teri's 11th house. Dean is detached when pursuing Teri. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Like, we're seeing there is like a level of like detachment, like as if Dean doesn't want to fully give in to his sort of like desires, so to speak. Teri always feels out of Dean's reach. I wonder, something I didn't consider, because I've been going with the thing of like, oh, they were just both young people, first TV show, blah, blah, blah. I didn't consider, because we're seeing this hesitancy on Dean's end. I didn't consider, what if Teri was in a relationship? And that is why he wasn't necessarily pursuing her, not necessarily just like work purposes. So I wonder if that is why there is hesitancy and she feels out of his reach, because she quite literally is for relationship purposes. Teri is intrigued by Dean's rebelliousness. Was he in a relationship? Were both of them in a relationship of some kind? And this was like, I guess, your typical sort of like co-worker, or like not typical, but like that trope of like, you know, like movie couples and everything getting a bit too close and everything when they're in a relationship because they're playing an on-screen couple. They both enjoy their freedom here. Their Mars signs are sextile to each other, so there's healthy competitiveness, and they do sports together. I mean, I imagine they would have to do some kind of like sports physical activities for the show they're on. Like, I assume it's a bit more action oriented than not. They're in sync and fighting can happen quickly, and they are supportive of each other. Teri's Mars sextile Dean's Jupiter. Teri feels more energized by Dean, and Teri encourages Dean to assert his independence. I mean, you could interpret this in different ways. Like, we did see how, like, Teri feels a bit, like, more intimidated by Dean, I think it was. We saw Teri feels inferior to Dean. So I wonder if in that way, like, she not encouraged her inferiority, but, like, in a way she felt inferior, so Dean may as well assert his independence. She gave him that space in a way. You could also see this as if Teri encouraged Dean to be, like, independent with his ideas, and essentially kind of like wasn't as supportive with Dean with his ideas, which, you know, the show was cut and everything. And maybe that is why Dean ghosted Teri, because he was quite bitter towards her, something of that nature. They encourage each other to engage in controversial behavior. Now I'm starting to feel like they were both in some kind of relationship of some kind. And like, that's why, because to me, like, there's attraction there, but nothing to really show they're quite serious about each other. They're competitive and they have a lot of fun together. They like to try new things together. Teri's Mars conjunct Dean's Uranus. Dean's independence is attractive to Teri, so I wonder if he's sort of more like dominant, you know, qualities and everything, all of that is attractive to Teri. I think we did see something like that. So potentially in that way, she does encourage him to assert that independence. It's unconventional and Dean can trigger Teri's temper. Okay, so I guess going back to Teri's more dominant qualities, because we did see they both have that tendency. Explosive sudden arguments that diffuse quickly, which goes back to the idea that fighting can happen quickly. Teri sees Dean as a friend, and yeah, we're seeing this as well. Like, we're seeing this attraction, but also like they see each other as a friend. Dean is attracted to Teri's decisiveness, and they may encourage each other to engage in reckless behavior. Again, if there is an element of them being in a relationship, which wouldn't surprise me now, you know, controversial, reckless behavior to cheat. Teri's Mars sextile Dean's Neptune. Teri fantasizes about Teri being dominant, which this makes me think, again, this seems to be like a rocky place of how the film ended. It seems like Dean had all these like ideas that were so, like, he thought was so great. Teri seemed to be supportive as well, but it seems like Dean was the only one that had the vision to pull through with it. So I wonder if maybe he wanted Teri to be a bit more assertive with those ideas. Even you could say like post-filming, because again, there seems to be like a clear-cut separation. I wonder maybe he wants Teri to, like, you know, reach out and be a sort of bigger person in a way. Teri is captivated by Dean, and Teri sees Dean as spineless. I mean, if he does just ghost her and that's it, like, that is a bit spineless. The relationship seems unbalanced to outsiders. Okay. I guess you could read this as we did see like they're a popular couple, so obviously public opinion is sort of relevant to this couple. Teri's Mars conjunct Dean's Pluto. It's competitive and Dean brings depth. I feel like depth in terms of like he's a bit more passionate about the film, has a bit more ideas potentially. Like I know we did see Teri also brings those exciting ideas, but I think we've seen a bit more with like on Dean's end bringing more like excitement and depth and ideas and everything. There's power struggles, not surprisingly so, and their fights can be big, which we saw before. They are both likely to transform here. I mean, we did see like right at the beginning it was transformative, particularly for Teri. I wonder if maybe Teri's career like blew up a bit more than Dean's. Dean's Mars sextile Teri's Jupiter. This is a repeated aspect, just inverted. So Teri encourages Dean to assert his independence, and Dean feels more energized by Teri. I feel like all things we've seen before. Dean's Mars sextile Teri's Uranus. They encourage each other's independence, and it's an experimental relationship, which we did see they try new things together and everything. They both share humanitarian interests, and Teri makes Dean anxious. Yeah, I'm not surprised. Like, Teri seems to have a bit more, like, anxiety and, like, nervousness. Dean's Mars Trine Teri's Neptune. There's a lack of boundaries. I would not be shocked, like, going towards the end of this reading, I would not be shocked if, like, these two were in a relationship and kind of, like, it doesn't seem like they fully, like, had a full-fledged, like, affair, if that was the case. Like, there definitely was, like, stepping on the line, though. Like, they're dancing on the line because they seem to be quite attracted to each other and everything, and, like, wanting to feed into temptation, particularly for Dean. Role-playing, I mean quite literally. Teri strengthens Dean's ego, and Dean feels more confident around Teri. We're seeing again, Dean is more dominant. I mean, he seems to be, like, because we've seen both of them being a bit more dominant and everything as individuals, but we have seen, like, a twitch bit more on Teri, you know, feeling a bit more inferior and allowing Dean to, like, you know, be dominant, feeding into his ego and everything. Dean's Mars sextile Teri's Pluto. Dean's daring nature is attractive to Teri, and it's competitive. I think we're seeing again that this sort of like daring side of Teri is attractive, of Dean is attractive to Teri, sorry. Its potential to be destructive or dangerous. I mean, if they do crazy stunts together, you know, on the movie it's destructive and dangerous. There are power issues and they have dramatic fights we're seeing again. So that was the final aspect, bringing us to the end of the reading. If you are still watching, please share your thoughts below. I would be very curious to see what you guys have to say about this one, particularly if you did watch the show. I'm very curious, like, how much of this, I guess, was TV show versus, like, the actual couple themselves. And if you have made it this far, please consider subscribing for more. I post these readings weekly. And besides that, give this video a like, and I will see you guys next time. Bye!